First of all, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. Like I said before, we really wanted to highlight you. I know we spoke to you for our podcast like 2016, maybe
Yes, it
2017,
feels like a
early
long
on.
time.
Yeah,
It
it
feels like a
was,
long
right? So
time.
just like us celebrating our 10 year and just like
Congratulations.
thank you coming back around and talking to people that we've been keeping our eye on still, and that's been doing different things for the Bronx and in the Bronx. So we really wanted to talk to you about that. So in my email, I shared that we were celebrating our 10. If you see me looking to the side, I have some of my questions there.
No
So
time.
we are for this 10 year looking at the Bronx, and just like in our untapped campaign, looking at the things on the areas, the people, the spaces that are still untapped, and just highlighting those things and bringing like attention and just celebrating them. Like it's not even like about anybody else necessarily needing to acknowledge or see what we're doing, but us seeing what we have and acknowledging that and celebrating that. So, with those questions in mind, um, I know you said that you are from Queens originally, but when did you move to the Bronx?
I moved to the Bronx in around 2004-ish. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was about like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So my ex was from the Bronx. And I remember we kind of made a joke because we used to take the Q44 across the bridge, and we said, when we have kids, where are they going to be from, Queens or the Bronx? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously he won. My girls are straight up Bronx girls. They
Mm-hmm.
still go to school, in the Bronx. They've born and raised in the Bronx, and I just feel like it's just been, like their roots, and I love it. I love that
Mm-hmm.
they've grown up with the same friends and the same neighborhood and the same school, and I love that for them.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. And so, like, when you were here, and I know you said you were 18, but like, what were some of the things that made the Bronx feel like home for you when
I
you were
mean,
growing up?
yeah. So for me, as soon as I came to the Bronx, I felt like it just kind of hugged me. I'm someone who's been through a lot. I left like my mom's house when I was 15. I came back to Queens to live with family. And when I moved across the bridge at 18, it was like, I don't know, just the grit and just the soul of like the Bronx just felt like it just embraced me. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I just felt like I belonged. I know it sounds so like silly maybe, but I really did truly feel like I fit in there. Um, and so the Bronx has just been home. And it's funny because it took a long time for me to say, like, I would joke, like, oh, I don't know if I can claim the Bronx, and they're like, girl, you've been here half your life now. You're a Bronx girl. So I usually like to say that I'm like a Queens girl, Bronx mama. But like I said, I love that my kids are Bronx kids.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, talking about that feeling of belonging and embrace, do you feel like that still exists in the Bronx? Like that feeling of embrace?
I think so. I think the thing too is when you're involved and you know people, suddenly you know everyone. I think everyone who's involved in the Bronx, it almost feels like high school. Like when you go to an event, you see people you know. I think a lot of people who maybe don't know about a lot of these like organizations or are just not very social or they have just a small friend group, they might not necessarily feel that way because I know a lot of people like to talk about, back in my day or things aren't the same, but I do still feel like there's that spirit there and the people who do get outside and go to events and network and meet each other. I think it really still does feel like just everyone shows love and is excited to see each other. So that's always exciting to go and who am I gonna run into today?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot to mention at the top of this meeting that it is being recorded, if you
No,
don't mind.
awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I mentioned that before we continue. So like, um, I mean, it's funny that you said it's almost like high school, and it's like you go somewhere and you see someone, and you're like, okay, you just see the people that you recognize, and I mean, I think that is something that is cool about living here as well. So the next question is, and no pressure, but do you currently still live in the Bronx?
So I'm back and forth. I did
Mm-hmm.
just because I split with my kid's dad. I came back to Queens just because I wanted to be around family for right now. I love just having family with me while I'm, finishing raising my kids. But I'm still in the Bronx pretty much every day. Like
Mm-hmm.
my kids are still in the Bronx. I'm literally across the bridge in Whitestone.
Mm-hmm.
So I could probably swim to the Bronx if I wanted to. But I'm there every day. I co-work every day. Usually, I'm with friends every day. Like my social life, everything is still in the Bronx. So even though I've, kind of expanded back into Queens, the Bronx is still home for me. And I'm sure I'll
Mhm.
be back, before I know it.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair. You know, and just like even the idea that you're saying that you could even be back shows that there's still that window, that opportunity, that embrace that at any moment, like you like if I need to come back here, when I want to come back here, I definitely will. But there's this idea that I wanted to touch on it. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but just paraphrasing like this book called, I think it's named Just Kids from the Bronx.
Mhm.
And like you've heard of it?
Yes, I used to have a copy of it. I think I decorated a tree at Bartell Pell Mansion and I used
Uh-huh.
the books to decorate and I think I left it there. But yep, I had the book.
Oh, okay, so that's great. Like there was one account in there, and I wish I like noted who said it or where it was, but they were basically saying something along the lines of the Bronx is a place where you might have like talent and you cultivate your talent, but then you end up leaving and going somewhere else for like a period of time. And then you just come back and then just settle down when you're just like ready to like, I guess, stop, just rest and relax and like maybe not living life in the on the grind basically. And I just
Right.
wanted to know what your thoughts are on that. Like, do you agree, disagree? Have you seen that or heard that sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, you always kind of hear that about people just in any kind of, hood that they live in, like, they leave and hopefully they do come back. But I feel too that because I moved around so much as a kid, I kind of have a different perspective. I know a lot of people feel like to grow, they have to leave home at some point. So I don't even know if it's always necessarily because they need to get out of the Bronx, but I think people just need to experience another world, and it makes them appreciate the things that, even if maybe they have some negative memories of childhood or things like that, like it always it really grounds you and makes you remember what was good, and
Mm-hmm.
what you do love about home. So I think it's just important to have that experience to leave home for just anyone, no matter if you live in a neighborhood that's known to be like, the best place to raise kids or not. For me, I moved around a lot as a kid, so I think I loved that I found a place to call home and that I could give my kids roots because I moved around like every 2 years as a kid. Um, and so even though Queens was always like my hometown, the Bronx really did become like the first place I put roots. And so, I think I might see it a little differently, but I do understand why people experience that.
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. I'm glad that you were able to find roots here for your children to like just experience the Bronx and the beauty of it. And just like speaking of or going back to that idea of just having to leave where you're from to experience something different for a bit or experience another environment or another world. One of the things through this campaign that we wanted to discuss was this idea of utopia and like the Bronx being a utopia. So on that note, I just wanted to get an idea of what does or what is what is your idea or your vision of a utopia? What does
I
that look
mean,
like?
for me, utopia is just, it's a peaceful place. It's somewhere, you're happy. It's visually beautiful, but also just mentally. It's, not a lot of stress. And I think that it's important that people just kind of like romanticize their life in general. And I think you can create your own utopia. Um, And that's what a big thing for me is I like to try to show people like, even if you don't have money to necessarily travel far, there are little places like in your own, city that you can kind of find like inspiration from, a different country. You can go to a coffee shop and feel like you went to Paris, or, you can go to the beach and feel like, you went to the some kind of a Caribbean town. So like, I just think people need to just appreciate what's around them, even though if you have goals and you want to go far and you do want to get out of where you're at, I think it's important to also like just see the beauty in where you are. So I think that's just build your own utopias in your mind.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So, do you or can you consider the Bronx as an untapped utopia? And in what way?
I mean, I would say like it's only untapped for the people who don't already appreciate it. I mean, I think that those of us who do, like, we already know what's beautiful about it, and some of us feel like sharing, some of us don't. I mean, I was recently in Paris and I met some people from like Germany, and they were kind of teasing me because I said, "Oh, I'll never live in Paris. It's not enough sun and I need to be near the beach." And they're like, "But you live in the Bronx." Like, assuming that it's like I don't have any of that. And so I love showing pictures of even just like when I walk the trails at Orchard Beach, and I show people just what it looks like, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like that's not at all what I was imagining. So, and I feel like proving or showing people the beauty, but I think for me, it was also important to show like people who were born and raised here. Not even show them because obviously they're born and raised here, but to remind them, I guess you could say. I like that more than caring about someone who's like not here, what they think of it. I want people here to appreciate it.
Mhm. Yeah, but I would go back and say show them too, because I remember like at some point growing up, I never really knew what the Bronx had to offer. It wasn't until I got a little older that I really started to discover the different things that were here and like learn to appreciate it a bit more. So like sometimes people who live here need a platform like Bronxmama to be able to see what actually is here because they just don't know. They feel like they have to go to, Manhattan, Brooklyn, every other place. So
Right.
yeah. So we're right at the end of the interview. But this if and I guess if you needed time to think about this too, although like and I guess it would be nice if you could like handwrite it and send it. That would be cool.
Okay.
But just to get your thought of this now, like if you had to write a love letter to the Bronx, what would it say?
Oh man. Like I said, it would probably be a little emotional just because I think I I fell in love with the Bronx just knowing that it was like I said, it was a hug. It's kind of funny because my mom, she's from Virginia, my father's from Queens, and when they used to drive to Queens when I was in my mother's stomach when she was pregnant, she used to say, "Can we stop at the Bronx?" And my dad's like, "Hell no." We're not what do you want to see there? And there was something that like it just drew her, and I always joke that that was like me inside like I want to go there. So I don't know, I just feel like it was destined for me to be there, and I have a really intense appreciation for it and just all of the people that I've met. um they've become family to me. I'm like an only child. I mean, I have a huge family, but I definitely just appreciate like every little thing about the Bronx. So I think it would probably be a little sappy.
Sappy's good. Sappy's fine. Well, that is really the end of the interview. As I said, I didn't want to keep you too long, but we just really wanted to get like a snapshot um, for the campaign and just so that people can hear and see the thoughts of the Bronx and just appreciate it, learn to appreciate it a little bit more each time.